Hola a todos! Hello everyone y bienvenidos. Welcome to this updated presentation on El Puente Bilingüe Montessori-inspired Spanish language learning curriculum. Thank you for taking some time out to find out about these Spanish language teaching and learning materials. My name is Gretchen and I'm the host and the creator behind El Puente Bilingüe. This webinar will last around 20 minutes. I'm going to start out by laying a foundation that will help you to understand exactly how El Puente Bilingüe curriculum is different from anything you have yet seen. And if you watched my original webinar from 2023 and you already know the why and the research behind the curriculum, feel free to jump to the purple section. If you're on YouTube watching this, I'll put in a minute marker or a note below the video. And I want to thank you in advance for being open to different perspectives, which will be presented thoroughly before I show our curriculum later in this short webinar. The information that you'll receive in the beginning will give you better understanding of what El Puente Bilingüe curriculum is all about. But first, you should know what we are about as a whole, and that is why I've included our vision statement on this slide. Building cultural and communicative bridges between people to help foster a peaceful existence. So at the end of the presentation, I will offer you some guidance for next steps should you decide to move forward with El Puente Bilingüe curriculum. And the really cool part is that there are a number of ways to do that now and on varying scales. So if you are here, it is likely because your school or your home school offers Spanish, or maybe you would like to start offering Spanish, but either way, you're seeking materials. Perhaps your Spanish guides are using things like storytelling methods, maybe project-based methods. Perhaps they try to stay in the language at all times, or they are perhaps using Spanish curriculum that was created for conventional schools and they have adapted it to be more Montessori-like. Now, these are all useful routes to take. I'm not here to convince anyone to choose to use our curriculum as a replacement. What we do offer is something different, and it can be a total replacement because my intention in designing this curriculum was never to recreate the wheel, okay? It was created to fill a void for the Montessori curriculum, and if you stick with me, I'll show you what I mean. So our materials can definitely be used as the main curriculum. They can also be used as a supplement. I do want to say that our curriculum is more than just classroom manipulatives. It is a teaching and learning system, which is scaffolded and aligned by a Spanish teacher with a Montessori background, who also holds a master's in curriculum and instruction with a concentration in bilingual education, a BA in Spanish, and over 35 years of cultural and linguistic experience in my familial, personal, and professional life. So if you haven't guessed, yeah, I'm talking about my own personal, professional experience. So I'm delighted to share that with you as we move forward through this presentation. Put in simple terms, El Puente Bilingüe curriculum has taken the Montessori first language development teaching and learning approach and transferred many of those Montessori skills into something that is created for second language learners. And when I say second language, I'm referring to the addition of another language, whether it's actually a second, third, fourth, or beyond. So to rephrase this, there is a very unique, untapped potential for second language learning and development in the Montessori elementary student. The skills and the processes that they have been using are ones that can and should be utilized to support them in learning and acquiring a new language. It isn't just as simple as translating materials, however. Okay, so as I said, it is specially created for language learners, and it is based on language learning and acquisition data and research. Now, you likely already know this, but it's important that I point it out, especially since the audience of this webinar is diverse as far as professional roles are concerned and personal backgrounds. So there is a difference between language learning and language acquisition. Language acquisition refers to a natural process of taking on a language through surrounding experiences. And I would argue that many, maybe even most language teachers in our country embrace this approach, and they do carry it out rather well. And I'm also willing to bet that this is very true of Montessori Spanish teachers. The trouble with using only this approach when you're in a world language class, as opposed to maybe dual language immersion, which we'll talk about in a second. But the trouble with using only this approach in a world language class is that the learners don't actually achieve the full benefits of it due to the short amount of time that they're actually exposed to the language. So language learning, it's an analytical process of understanding the workings of a language, and it can propel a language learner to better acquire a language. Knowledge and understanding help language learners to reduce affective filters by building one's confidence. Okay, so both processes, language learning and language acquisition, are important, and they should not have to exist independently of one another. In fact, they support and complement one another. Okay, so you've hung in there with me up until now, and in my next slide, I'll begin to show you the El Puente Bilingüe curriculum. But I want to add one more point to consider as far as language learning and acquisition is concerned. As Montessorians, we know the power of intrinsic motivation and exploration. Our core philosophy tells us to follow the child. And most modern educators know the power of immersive language experiences as well. Something to consider is that recent scholarly work on bilingual education shows us that cross-linguistic comparisons that allow for language analysis along with supported translanguaging are strongly effective for language learners. And I'm happy to provide the sources on this research for anyone who asks. Like I said, El Puente Bilingüe is here to fill a void. And the void I'm referring to is language learning through analysis and cross-comparisons, as well as the opportunity for self-correction through the use of materials and exploration, as shown in this picture of a young student who was using our prototype set a few years back. So, do these practices sound familiar? That's because those skills are already built into Montessori first language learning and development materials. And now with El Puente Bilingüe, they're built into Spanish language learning materials as well. I'd like to share what a typical lesson with El Puente Bilingüe includes and does not include. I'll begin by highlighting some of the teaching and learning features. So the lessons are short. They can generally be done within 7 to 12 minutes. Some are even shorter, some might be just slightly longer. Each lesson begins by igniting the student's prior knowledge and inciting a brief discussion. Many times, especially in the early lessons, this prior knowledge focuses on what they know in English. The lesson continues with a short presentation of a concept or a skill that is interwoven with new vocabulary. And modeling of material use is included within the presentation. Then there's a send-off where students are asked to work in pairs or in groups because community does help build language. However, for those who are resistant to working with others, the practice can be done independently as well. During this time, the Spanish guide or the teacher would observe and make notes on the student's progress. And within the work suggested in the guidebook is a component that I've coined as the mastery track activity. The mastery track activity many times includes construction of knowledge, either as an individual or in a group. So it allows the reluctant or struggling learners to better grasp a concept or skill, or it allows the eager and quick learners a chance to expand upon their new knowledge. So sometimes the mastery track activity is better done before the send-off activity. Guides can go ahead and follow their learners accordingly and offer choices that are provided in the lesson guidebook, or maybe something new and creative will come to the guides as something they'd like to offer as well. Now, what is not included is a push for the guide to teach only in Spanish. This may or may not surprise you, but using Spanish while teaching very beginning language students is actually something that needs to be done very strategically and rather sparingly within a world language classroom. We want our world language students to use a comprehensible input plus one approach so that they feel empowered as they begin to build upon each skill set and new group of vocabulary words. So now this world language classroom scenario differs from a dual language approach, which is a marvelous way to acquire and learn a language, by the way. Dual language students are immersed in the language day in and day out. They are likely analyzing the Spanish language through use of perhaps a traditional Montessori Spanish grammar boxes as a first language learner, much in the same way English-speaking students, Montessorians, grow their first language and grammar skills. They start young so that they can still use that triad of language acquisition that all small children use when they are acquiring the languages that are spoken around them. But for Spanish world language teachers or lead guides who are teaching Spanish, I absolutely do encourage using Spanish with your students. I offer suggestions in the introduction of the guidebook on ways to support your learners throughout the day. But these lessons themselves are meant to be given in English so that the students are able to grasp the actual concepts and not have to weed through their linguistic barriers as they learn. Later in work time and while doing mastery track activities, guides can monitor and support their students in speaking and hearing Spanish. And once students have been presented with a concept or skill, guides may choose to recap in Spanish or use a bit of Spanish in the next lesson when students are asked to recall those concepts from the last lesson. Okay, so before I show you some images of our materials, I want to mention the various ways in which we support our guides. Spanish guides are supported in the guidebook with multiple tools. Each lesson includes a script, which is meant to be a helpful tool for the guide, and it's something that they can use. Either they can strictly adhere to it or they can just use it as a loose tool. But lessons have a list of materials needed, as well as prerequisite skills and concepts. At the end of the guidebook, there are printables that can be copied and reused if needed. There are no worksheets in this curriculum. So I'm not trying to say that worksheets can never be useful or helpful, but again, El Puente Bilingüe is not here to reinvent any wheel that has already been created. This curriculum is filling a void. Assessments are done through observation, and guides can use this sleek tracking sheet that's included in the guidebook to stay on top of their scholars' progress. El Puente Bilingüe offers added support for clients through access to training videos or through a pilot program if you choose to work with me that way. El Puente Bilingüe language learning materials come in 2 sets or levels. In past years, learning cards have been housed in 9 boxes total of varying sizes, and some of the covers of those boxes serve as learning boards for students to place cards as they are practicing various skills. The boxes are beautifully designed, they're built to last, and they are a gorgeous addition to any Montessori environment. We do plan to bring them back in the future, and we're asking for feedback from schools to help us make those future plans. And I'll give more information about that in a minute or two, but please know that El Puente Bilingüe has got you covered. Check out what's coming next. The first set of materials is called Laying the Groundwork, and I'd like you to pause the video now and just read through the topics that are covered. So these materials were created with lower and upper elementary students in mind, but they're designed to be utilized along with the second set of materials, which is for upper elementary or middle school age students. There are suggestions for how to integrate these materials with with the second set, and they're included in that guidebook for the second set. So this first set calls upon early Montessori grammar and analysis skills that are already practiced in English. Pronunciation should also be taught and practiced throughout, and we do offer something for that, which I will show you also in just a moment or two. And the second set connects the topics from the laying the groundwork materials to action words and pronouns. And this second set is called Who We Are and What We Do. And you should go ahead and pause the video again so that you can see the topics that are covered. But generally speaking, these materials are appropriate for upper elementary and middle school age students. But I do want to say that when I first started this whole journey with creating this curriculum, I found that there were lower elementary students who were ready to learn verb conjugations. And that is the power of the Montessori education, my friends. So these two sets together include 1,383 cards, 472 words explicitly taught through the two sets, plus the many, many words that students will end up acquiring through those exploratory mastery track activities. There are also 2 guidebooks and 2 setup guides. So, and now what we are offering are these digital downloads for these materials. So if you would like to have them printed, cut, laminated, go ahead and message me and we can talk about that option. Now, at the time that I'm recording this video, which is spring of 2025, we are going to start a wait list for anyone who's interested in getting the boxes that house the materials. They are quite time consuming to build, and my expert carpenter is currently employed with other big projects. So just message me at puente at gmail.com. Notice there's no diéresis over the U, so it's just, it's misspelled technically, but if you want to be made aware of when those boxes become available once again, or maybe you'd like to put down a deposit for him to be able to gather those resources and get started, we can communicate about that via email if you'd like. So now I've showed you those 2 sets for elementary, but I do want to share some other really amazing additions to our offerings, which I did not previously have on that other webinar a couple years ago. So for classrooms and homeschools that would like to include a few more differentiation tools, this digital pack of materials could be exactly what you need. It's fully aligned with the other curriculum. In fact, I created these materials, this early Montessori Spanish skills set, I created these after I created the other 2 sets because I wanted to offer people something that can serve as either a differentiation tool or a light touch approach for those who do not want to have such a robust Spanish curriculum, but maybe you do want to have some things on hand, or for schools who are getting their scholars started at a very early age. This package doesn't come with written lessons, but it does come with some general guidance, and I do also offer some links to some helpful videos that demonstrate how to use many of the materials. And now, my friends, we are also offering some really, really exciting options here for people who maybe you want to try out the materials, but you're not ready to get the entire package. You might be interested in taking a look at either our membership option, or you might be interested in looking through our store site to see which individual lessons you could purchase. And that membership, as well as those individual lessons, come with videos. So you'll have to take a look at it for yourself to see what I'm referring to, but these are some really great lower cost options that will still get you going with the curriculum without as big of a commitment to the cost. So this about wraps it up, but I want to add a few personal messages for you. First of all, thank you so much for joining me in this webinar. In Montessori, we talk a lot about the cosmic task, and I want to say that my cosmic task, or one of them anyway, is to promote bilingualism. It seems like it's more important now than ever that we shine light on ways that we can all connect with one another as human beings. So, on that note, if there is something else that your learners need that I haven't mentioned in this webinar that you think I could perhaps help you with, please feel free to reach out. You can see my email again here on the screen. I'm open to hearing your ideas, and I will serve you in the best ways I can. I really would like to take this work to a deep level as much as I am able with the resources that I'm provided. So my hope is that you've found value and inspiration in the content that I've presented here, and together we can build bilingual bridges alongside our learners. Muchas gracias y hasta pronto.